tonight on CBC Vancouver News. Up in flames.
I'm just brokenhearted. I'm just dumbfounded.
One person arrested after 3 Masonic halls in Metro Vancouver are torched. Also,
honestly, a bit of a slap in the face.
Why BC's premier is backtracking.
Do not blow this for the rest of us.
After blaming young people for a rise in COVID-19 cases. And
rolling out the AstraZeneca. BC opens up vaccinations for 55 to 65.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
I came out, it was just kind of smoke, but then it went up and up.
an early morning fire roars through a Masonic lodge on Lonsdale Avenue in North Vancouver. Minutes later, firefighters scramble to another lodge in nearby Lynn Valley.
Then, half an hour later, someone sets fire to a third Masonic lodge, this one in East Vancouver. Tonight, a man suspected of arson in all 3 fires is in custody. Good evening. I'm Anita Bathe in Vancouver tonight, and Mike Killeen is live in North Vancouver. Mike, you're at the scene where one of those fires broke out.
Yeah, 12th and Lonsdale here in North Vancouver. Anita, just across from me. What's left of the Duke of Connaught Lodge, Masonic Lodge number 64. Demolition crews are, well, they're taking down what's left of the structure tonight. One of 3 Masonic lodges in Metro Vancouver targeted by a firebug early this morning. A 42-year-old suspect in custody, and Greg Rasmussen has our top story.
Firefighters struggled to control this blaze in a building housing a Masonic lodge and some businesses. This man had to flee his office in a neighboring building.
I came out, it was just kind of smoke, but then it went up and up.
Currently, the fire is deemed to be suspicious, yes.
Minutes earlier, at another Masonic hall, another suspicious fire. The first was here on Vancouver's North Shore. The second nearby within minutes of the first blaze. About 30 minutes later, one more, this time in Vancouver. That's where an eyewitness spotted this.
He just set the building on fire. He's getting into a black van.
This video posted to social media shows a man carrying a gas can. Then a police officer arrives.
There's a cop here.
The police are there?
He pulls a gun on the suspect. The man ignores the officer's orders.
They are fighting. They are fighting right now. Yeah.
Eventually, the man fights off the officer and drives away.
He went down East 29th Avenue on the west side, down westward.
Who was fighting with the officer, sir?
Yes.
Vancouver police said the officer in the video was off duty when he tried to make the arrest.
As for the centers being targeted, I'm not aware of any specific threats or any past threats.
They aren't confirming a 42-year-old man later taken into custody was the one shown in the video. But an investigation spanning multiple jurisdictions is looking at why Masonic lodges were apparently targeted.
A review of any history involving the locations that were targeted would be part of that investigative process. But at this time, we don't know. We would like to know, and we hope we will find out.
Police say no one was injured in the fires, but damage was considerable. Greg Rasmussen, CBC News, Vancouver.
So this entire area remains closed off tonight as demolition crews continue their work at the lodge across the street. You can see, I think if we go up to near the top, some of the demolition crews have been working up in there. You know, this fire broke out just before 7 this morning, and at about 5 this afternoon it was still smoldering. It's out, but now they've got to clear away all the debris. Really sad for Masons throughout Metro Vancouver. As part of our ongoing coverage coming up later in the newscast, we'll be talking with a former pastor of this lodge here in North Vancouver. Anita?
All right, Mike Killeen live in North Vancouver tonight. Mike, we will talk to you later on. Well, BC's vaccination rollout is being moved up. Now people aged 55 to 65 can book in to get the AstraZeneca shot starting tomorrow. Isabel Regam joins us now with the latest. Isabel, why the change here?
Anita, this comes a day after BC followed federal government guidance to stop giving the AstraZeneca to people under 55 because of a risk of blood clots. Now, those doses originally set aside for frontline workers will be given to people between 55 and 65 living in the Lower Mainland. For people in that age group, you can call your local pharmacy starting tomorrow to book an appointment. This is only for people living in the Vancouver Coastal and Fraser Health regions. Not every pharmacy will be on the list. We should be getting more information on the 150 locations that will be giving out these shots by tomorrow morning. Some will also provide drop-in services. For those who are concerned about getting this particular vaccine, the government is reassuring people it is safe within a certain age group. Dr. Henry said in a statement this afternoon, we know from the millions of doses used worldwide, the benefits to those over age 55 far outweigh the very real risks of getting COVID-19.
Currently, Isabel, age-based vaccine bookings are open for those 73 years old and older. This announcement is for those 55 to 65. So what about those people who are between 65 and 73? A lot of numbers here, but hopefully you can keep track.
Well, there's that gap, right, between the 65 and 73, and we asked the province that question as soon as this news came out around 4 o'clock this afternoon. We were told we would be getting an answer, but have not gotten one since. And Health Minister Dix did speak to reporters earlier today before the news came out, and he referenced it without giving any details. Here's what he said.
I have a record number of bookings today, and we need to because we're moving into larger age cohorts right now, and we have the 150,000 people across BC who are clinically vulnerable who need to book as well.
BC is still waiting on more data on the AstraZeneca vaccine to people under 55. For now, it has paused that rollout altogether.
Isabel Regam live for us tonight. Thanks, Isabel. Though BC's vaccinations are rising, case numbers are reaching levels we haven't seen before. The province's rolling average goes to its highest level in the entire pandemic. Active cases are now at their highest since January 3rd, and hospitalizations are slightly up, though there are no new deaths to report. Now, BC's premier appears to be backtracking after backlash about him telling people, young people, don't blow it. John Horgan's comments were directed at 20 to 39-year-olds, many of whom are reacting in anger today. As Tanya Fletcher is finding out, the messaging has struck a nerve.
I'm appealing to young people to curtail your social activity. The directions will be quite clear from Dr. Henry, but my appeal to you is do not blow this for the rest of us.
That message from the Premier didn't land well.
Honestly, a bit of a slap in the face. You know, it was specifically the phrase, don't blow this for us.
Andrea Lowen is 36 years old and lives in Vancouver alone. She hasn't dined in a restaurant since the pandemic began. She says her friends have been taking every precaution asked of them. And much of the bad behavior they witness comes from older age groups.
So many of us will look and say, you know, I've had to tell my parents multiple times they can't come over. Or, you know, my boss doesn't care and isn't putting in place barriers no matter how many times WorkSafe BC comes to visit, and all these stories. So we're kind of going, you know, we're the ones who are trying to push the other people around us to be careful and to do these things, and then we're getting lumped in as the problem children.
The problem, many say, is the government blaming an entire age group for the actions of a few. Take this video from Big White near Kelowna, shot yesterday, just hours after the new restrictions were announced. Public Health has repeatedly said young people are driving transmission through social interactions, but calls are growing for actual data to drive home the point.
Really show us, sector by sector, where are the transmissions happening? How is government making its decisions? What is informing their communications?
Many young people have to work front-facing jobs that leave them more exposed to the virus. From retail to restaurants, grocery store clerks to warehouse workers, many also have no choice but to live with roommates just to afford rent.
We've been disproportionately affected by this pandemic in so many ways.
Justin Kulik is about to turn 20 and is no stranger to politics. He was the youngest NDP candidate in the last provincial election, but that didn't stop him from blasting the very leader he ran for. He tweeted this hours after John Horgan's comments yesterday. "Premier, how dare you tell young people not to ruin it for the rest of us? You owe us an apology."
I'd like to see more people being willing to call out when their party, their leader, is wrong. And on this issue, my leader, the leader of the party I'm a member of, is wrong.
And then late today, John Horgan appearing to backtrack somewhat, tweeting, quote, "To the vast majority of young people doing everything they can, thank you." Tanya Fletcher, CBC News, Vancouver.
And it's another shock to the system for business owners at Whistler Blackcomb, an extra month of COVID closures on top of the government-issued rules. Whistler Blackcomb says instead of reopening in mid-April, which is the BC deadline for this set of restrictions, it will stay closed until May 21st. The resort says it has made the decision to wind down winter operations and focus on safely opening for summer instead. All lift reservations, ski school, and dining bookings will be canceled. And the city of Surrey may be one step closer to getting rid of patio fees for restaurants. Many restaurants are now relying on patios to keep their business going, but in some cities, they need to pay extra. Surrey Mayor Doug McCallum plans to propose waiving the cost during this 3-week shutdown. Surrey Councillor Linda Annis is asking for more to be done to help businesses.
I was very pleasantly surprised to see the mayor bring this notice of motion forward, or will be bringing it forward, at our April 12th council meeting. My other reaction to this is that waiving the fees is not enough. We need to help these restaurants who are struggling financially.
Meanwhile, Vancouver also has a fee. No word on whether it will be removed, but the city says it is looking to expand current patio spaces and aid restaurants in other ways. A Vancouver Canucks player is in the NHL's health and safety protocol after testing positive for COVID-19. Adam Gaudette was on the ice for practice today, but was removed shortly after the results came back. His sample will now undergo further testing to confirm the result. If Gaudette is positive for COVID-19, the league will require him to self-isolate for 10 days. Police are responding to allegations of separate racist attacks in 2 different Lower Mainland communities. In one incident, Richmond RCMP have arrested a suspect in connection with an alleged assault that happened yesterday. A warning, some viewers may find these details upsetting. Social media posts claim a man uttered anti-Asian slurs at a cafe employee in Steveston. That worker then allegedly had a coffee thrown at her. The woman who took this video was also allegedly sworn at. Richmond police say they take seriously any investigation with hate as a potential motivation. Also, another disturbing incident, this time at UBC, where police are looking into what they say was an unprovoked attack on the Point Grey campus. They say an Asian woman was punched and verbally assaulted Saturday evening around 8 p.m. The suspect is described as a tall man with medium build. He was wearing a hoodie, sweatpants, and a dark face mask. Police are asking anyone with information to come forward. The university is holding a public discussion tonight to examine anti-Asian racism. And Abbotsford police are on the lookout for a burglar who has stolen kittens from a cat named Mittens. Early this morning, the suspect entered a home on Bevan Avenue and took off with the 10-day-old kitties. Other valuables were also reported missing, including passports and an Apple TV. The suspect is described as a Caucasian male in his 20s with a slim build. Anyone with information on the whereabouts the kitten-napped newborns are asked to contact police. And meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now. I thought you were in a T-shirt for a second there.
Yeah,
but no,
that would be pushing the spring weather forecast, I think, just a little bit.
I was just going to say, but it was pretty nice out today.
You're right, almost T-shirt weather. I think the next week or so, it won't be shocking to see anybody wearing short sleeves But we've got to get through one more cool night. Take a look at the current temperatures out there, hitting close to the double digits across Metro Vancouver. A little cooler because that extended cloud cover this morning. We actually had some low-level circulation bring a few showers early morning hours to Abbotsford, but catching a nice mix of sun and cloud for everyone. Watch as I take you through the overnight temperatures with the blue skies increasing as we speak. That means clear skies overnight. Could be another crisp morning across the south coast. Hitting the zeros, not out of the question. So one more cool one before we see some overnight temperatures warm up. But look at these afternoon highs for tomorrow across Metro Vancouver. 12s, 13s, 14s, not out of the question as we get into a blue sky midweek forecast. That's all thanks to this big high pressure ridge that's keeping that system to the north at bay for another 24 hours. It is bringing heavy rain and winds to Haida Gwaii, and it will eventually track down the south coast as we head into the forecast for Thursday, but not a complete washout to the second half of the week. I'll break that down coming up. I think we got some showers, some sunshine, and some egg collecting weather. But first, Anita, I'm going to take us to the interior, where the city of Vernon has given up the copyright to the Ogopogo and transferred it to a local First Nation. The move comes after criticism of cultural appropriation from Indigenous communities. Last Monday, City Council passed a motion by a 4-3 vote to relinquish the right of assigning who can use the name of Ogopogo.
Yes, the name Ogopogo is derived from the Seal language. The Ogopogo's name and story carry religious meaning to that First Nation. Vernon had owned intellectual property of the mythical lake serpent since 1956. A good move for sure. Okay, a reminder, you can watch this newscast live on CBC Gem. The free app is also where you can find other CBC programs. CBC Vancouver also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. A sobering statistic, Canada's long-term care homes were among the hardest hit in the world by COVID-19. Why the country was so unprepared for the second wave, that's next. Thank you for watching our online commercial-free live stream. Well, a Halifax filmmaker is getting some international recognition, and it's a topic we can all relate to during the pandemic. As Colleen Jones reports, the animated film How to Be at Home is up for an award at the world's top animated film festival.
The reasonable feelings, discomfort, lack of focus.
This is the latest animated film by Andrea Dorfman, How to Be at Home.
You can message your family or your friends or your colleagues.
I was asked, along with many other filmmakers, early in the COVID days, which seems now like an era, an eon ago, I was asked to make a film in isolation. I, of course, as an artist, was thinking about COVID a lot and how I could express it. But I immediately solicited the help of a collaborator who we've made many films together. Her name is Tanya Davis.
If you are, at first, lonely, be patient.
Back in 2010, they collaborated and made How to Be Alone, which became a viral video.
It's fine to be alone once you're embracing it.
This is the first book I used.
From her small animation studio, she went to work last April and through the summer, drawing images inside of old books to be used for the animation.
Because I really love this idea of books, and I love books, I decided I would animate in a book. And I couldn't find animation paper anywhere because art stores were closed, and I thought, well, I could use the books as the animation paper, old books. I was working on a 12 frame per second basis. So for every second of animation that you saw on the screen, I had 12 images. And sometimes that was just straight 12 different images. Is it harder to do film this way? I think it's actually perfect for COVID because it was at a time when nobody was seeing anybody. We were really home-based. I found out today that the film has gotten into the Annecy Film Festival, which is an incredible and prestigious festival for, I mean, probably the foremost animation festival in the world. And it's in France, and it's in a pandemic, so I won't be going.
Lean into loneliness and know you're not alone in it.
The film festival in France is another event she'll happily watch at home, virtually.
Oh, we are connected.
Colleen Jones, CBC News, Halifax.
Always cool to see Canadians recognized on an international level. All right, stick with us. We'll be back with more news from around the world and across Canada coming up. A new report details just how devastating COVID-19 has been on Canada's long-term care homes. As David Common reports, it underscores how some provinces were unprepared for the second wave, costing more lives.
The brutal assessment reveals Canada as the worst among wealthy nations for the proportion of deaths in long-term care. It zeroes in on how well our provinces reacted after the first wave to improve. Quebec, with by far the most deaths in that spring wave, cut them nearly in half during the second one.
Partly because they actually improved their staffing levels, they actually improved their infection prevention control measures. But other provinces like Ontario that really didn't make as much progress just saw a deadlier second wave.
The Prairie provinces too, which largely escaped the first wave, got hit hard in the second. Nova Scotia was only lightly impacted, but better in the fall than in the spring. Quebec showed massive improvement. And that raises questions about whether all provinces made needed changes over the summer.
Did we have a number of avoidable deaths? Absolutely.
Those of us who are advocates were very shocked at the little progress that went on during the summer, even though everyone kept saying there's going to be a second wave.
The report notes multiple provincial inquiries are recommending the same thing: more staff, in a system that gets a third less funding than in most other wealthy nations.
You kind of get what you pay for.
I don't have a lot of faith in the system right now.
So, after thousands of deaths, long-standing problems exposed, solutions recommended, how confident are advocates of change?
We know we're going to come out of this with a huge deficit, and where's the first place they seem to cut is often in the care of seniors.
She also questions how for-profit homes, which got so bad soldiers had to intervene, are now being awarded extra bed space by Ontario. One result? They'll make more money. David Common, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, questions and concerns continue to be raised about the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. But Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is defending the way health officials have been communicating about those concerns. As Catherine Cullen reports, he's also offering some optimism, announcing millions of doses of the Pfizer vaccine will arrive in this country sooner than expected.
Look, I understand how challenging this can be for Canadians.
The Prime Minister acknowledged the latest frustration around vaccination. AstraZeneca won't be used on Canadians under 55, while health officials assess the risk of a rare form of blood clot. There have been no reported cases in Canada. Weeks ago, AstraZeneca faced questions about its efficacy for seniors. New data resolved that. Now, this.
When you look back on the history of this AstraZeneca vaccine, we all say, I don't know what happened, but it was born under not a good star.
And there's scrutiny for Canadian health officials, too, about whether they've communicated about the concerns clearly. The Prime Minister defends the intent.
Canadians need to know that every step of the way, there is one thing driving all these experts, and that is keeping Canadians safe.
Canadians should be reassured that we have systems in place to detect safety signals.
As for the broader vaccination effort, millions of Canadians are still anxiously waiting for their shot.
We don't have the supply that we need. It's as simple as that.
On that front, the Prime Minister had some good news.
Pfizer has now confirmed that they will be moving up 5 million doses from later in the summer into June.
Canada is now on track to receive at least 44 million doses of vaccine by the end of June.
The single-dose Johnson & Johnson vaccine now has an anticipated arrival time too, in April. A mix of promise and complications that has defined Canada's quest to vaccinate. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.
Criticism is mounting about a report published by the World Health Organization on the origins of COVID-19. 14 countries, including Canada, signed a statement today saying the report was significantly delayed and lacked access to complete data.
I see that again as a continuum in working closely with our Chinese counterparts on making best use of all the data that is out there.
The report suggests that animal-to-human transmission is the most likely cause, but others, including a possible laboratory leak, can't be entirely ruled out. They didn't come to any conclusion. The WHO group spent 4 weeks in and around Wuhan, China in January and February. The report is being described as the first attempt to find out where the virus came from more than a year ago. And as mentioned, the National Advisory Committee on Immunization is recommending provinces suspend the use of the AstraZeneca vaccine for anyone under 55 because of ongoing concerns around blood clots. There are no reported cases of the rare blood clots in this country. The committee itself calls the decision precautionary, but according to one expert, the change is justified.
I appreciate how challenging this is for the general public who's hearing, different policy changes over time, actually over a short period of time with the same vaccine. I appreciate that it can get confusing and that, of course, it erodes trust, and we have to be mindful of that. On the other hand, we've got to really ensure safety first.
According to the vice chair of the advisory committee, none of the other vaccines approved for use in Canada have been associated with this rare side effect. As for the company, AstraZeneca says regulatory authorities, including those in Canada, have concluded the benefits of using their vaccine significantly outweigh the risks across all age groups. The trial of the former police officer charged in the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis continued today. Stephen D'Souza has more on the testimony from the teenager who shot the video of Floyd's arrest and another witness who called 911.
It was an emotional day of testimony at the trial of Derek Chauvin, charged with murder and manslaughter in the killing of George Floyd. The court heard today from Darnella Fraser, who was just 17 at the time when she took out her cell phone and took video of what was happening to George Floyd. That video went viral, and that video put George Floyd's name on the lips of protesters both here in the U.S. and around the world. She fought back tears as she described hearing George Floyd's last words and how she and other bystanders pleaded with Derek Chauvin to take his knee off Floyd's neck. But she testified today that instead of doing that it appeared Derek Chauvin actually pressed his knee down harder across Floyd's neck. She also testified in a very powerful moment about the emotional impact of taking that video and it going viral. Now, as you watch this, note that the judge did not allow her face to be shown because she was a minor at the time, so listen closely to what she had to say.
It's been nights. I stayed up apologizing and apologizing to George Floyd for not doing more and not physically interacting and not saving his life. But it's not what I should have done. It's what he should have done.
The he that she is referring to is Derek Chauvin, who she pointed to directly in court. Now, earlier in the day, the court heard from another eyewitness who described how angry he was seeing what police were doing and that he was so upset seeing the life drain from George Floyd that he actually called 911 on the police. Take a listen to what he had to say.
At some point, did you make a 911 call?
That is correct. I did call the police on the police.
Right. And why did you do that?
Because I believe I witnessed a murder.
And so you felt a need to call the police?
And I felt the need to call the police on the police.
The court heard that 911 call, and then the defense, in their cross-examination, tried to portray the witnesses as angry and the crowd unruly and that this was a dangerous neighborhood, and so the police themselves were the ones who felt threatened. But both witnesses pushed back against the defense, saying that the only reason that they were angry was because what they witnessed happening to George Floyd. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, Minneapolis.
3 Masonic lodges attacked in just a matter of a few hours. Coming up, we speak with a member about the devastation and the impact this will have on charities across the Lower Mainland.
Here is Peter Mansbridge.
Remember the last book by Dan Brown, that little thing called the Da Vinci Code? Well, today, fans of the blockbuster novelist got their first peek at his latest work. This one focusing on yet another mysterious group, the Freemasons. Well, we're not going to let you in on the book's secrets. Instead, we're going one better. Chris Brown's going to let you into the secret society itself.
The Illuminati were a secret society.
Dan Brown, the Da Vinci Code author who turned secret societies into 2 ginormous selling books and movies, has a new one on the stands today, The Lost Symbol. And this time, the Vatican can relax. It's not the Catholic Church covering up and conspiring, it's the Freemasons.
I grew up in a town in New England where there was a Masonic lodge above the movie theater, and I have no idea what happened up there, so I've always been interested in them.
The Masons, named after the English stonelayers who founded them 700 years ago, use code words, secret handshakes, and blood oaths to protect their privacy. So it came as a bit of a surprise when we were invited to take a tour of their Vancouver lodge.
Do you do many public showings of your inner sanctum here?
You'll be the first. We'll kill you now.
Nice to know Masons have a sense of humor. At least Trevor McYown does. He says it's funny to think he's part of a conspiracy to rule the world.
How do people inside the Freemasons react to that?
Generally with humor. Certainly younger members, certainly myself, finds it very entertaining.
Masons and their secretive ways have long been a topic of fascination and spoofery.
Who rigged every Oscar night? We do.
Famously here by Homer Simpson and his fictitious group, the Stonecutters. But Brown's new book hints at something more ominous. Set in Washington, D.C., a city where Masonic symbols have been built into the design of the Capitol, Brown has grafted on a plot that 14 U.S. presidents have decided the fate of the world, shaped by what went on in secret Masonic meetings.
As long as it's claimed as fiction, I don't have a problem with it personally.
Among prominent Canadian Masons are first Prime Minister Sir John A. Macdonald, healthcare icon Tommy Douglas, even hockey star Tim Horton. Membership has dwindled of late, though. Perhaps the notion of world domination is just the recruiting kick they need.
I think that's a Masonic handshake? Oh, yeah.
Is that it?
No, I think you just like me.
I didn't get it right.
No, not even close.
Chris Brown, CBC News, Vancouver.
And that is The National for this Tuesday night. I'm Peter Mansbridge. Thanks for watching.
Starting tomorrow, people in BC aged 55 to 65 can book to receive an AstraZeneca vaccine. This comes after the federal government recommended AstraZeneca no longer be given to people under 55 because of the risk of blood clots. The push to vaccinate more people comes as we see a surge in cases in our province. And yesterday, BC Premier Horgan said young people are behind the exponential rise. But as Justin McElroy reports, so far available data doesn't support those claims.
It's young people's fault. That summarized is the message of the NDP government over the surge in cases in BC over the past 2 weeks. Something Premier John Horgan said yesterday at a press conference, and then was doubled down by 2 of his youngest MLAs in social media posts yesterday.
Hey everyone, so I've got bad news.
COVID cases are going through the roof, and it's mostly due to folks in our age group, 19 to 39 years of age. As a result, Dr. Bonnie Henry has had to clamp down hard.
However, at this point, the publicly available data to support those claims isn't being shown to the public. Take a look at this chart showing the last 14 days of cases in British Columbia by age. It's basically at the same level for 20 or 30-somethings as the percentage of overall cases in the province. The overall dynamic and framework for how these cases are spreading, at least by age, isn't being shown there. What the government said today is that contact tracing is showing that a higher percentage of original spreader events are happening from 20 to 30-somethings. The data for that not being shown. Regardless of how this spread is happening, numbers are up, and people do need to take precautions with variants spreading in the community to avoid a larger and deadlier third wave. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Vancouver.
Okay, and outside of BC, the COVID-19 crisis in Ontario has reached new peaks. Daily infections are spiking and variants of concern are spreading faster and hitting young people the most. As Jessica Ng shows us, it's not clear what Ontario plans to do about that.
The variant is a completely different animal. It's like a completely different pandemic.
Dr. Michael Warner is the medical director of critical care at Michael Garron Hospital. He says he anticipates the next 2 months will be tough for the province's intensive care units and worse than the second wave. Warner says COVID-19 related patients often make up more than half of his ICU, and they're trending younger than before.
Entire households are getting infected as opposed to just one or two people within a household because it's so much more transmissible.
Ontario hospitals received a memo Monday urging staff to refresh your awareness and commitment to guidance given in January, which told them to prepare to surge capacity to 115%. A study by the Ontario Health Coalition says over the last 2 months, cases have risen significantly, and workplace outbreaks increased 24% compared to 12% by community spread. It's especially concerning ahead of Easter weekend, when 30 to 50,000 churchgoers will likely attend in-person services at the 225 Catholic parishes in the Greater Toronto Area. Neil McCarthy of the Archdiocese says most of these events sold out within hours of reservations opening.
So this year in the gray zones, we're allowed to have 15% capacity, and in red zones, we have 30% capacity. So we recognize not everyone, obviously, who would like to be at church this week is going to be able to be there. So we will be drawing on some of the tools that we've used over the last year.
Like live streams of church services, which have been adopted in over half of the city's churches. Politicians and doctors agree that though you can attend these events in person, you should instead stay home.
If the government doesn't impose significant restrictions, I would impose those restrictions on yourself. I think we need to think independently and not rely on the government to guide us, because I don't think they've led us to a very good place right now.
Jessica Ng, CBC News, Toronto.
Time now to go back to Mike Killeen in North Vancouver for more on our top story. 3 fires set to Masonic halls in just a matter of hours. Mike?
Yes, Anita. The fire crews that have been on scene here at 12th and Lonsdale, a very long day for them. They got here just before 7 o'clock. The fire hall's just around the corner, but unfortunately they weren't able to save the Duke of Connaught Lodge number 64 here in North Van. While the fire crews are packing up, the demolition crews are continuing their work. There is really not much left of this historic structure. It's been around since the early 1900s in various shapes and forms, but it is a total loss tonight. As you say, one of 3 Masonic lodges targeted by a firebug throughout the Lower Mainland this morning. A 42-year-old suspect in custody. Zara Premji takes us through what happened.
A black cloud of smoke spread across the sky just after 6 Tuesday morning as the Lynn Valley Masonic Lodge was consumed by fire. Less than an hour later, one of North Vancouver's last standing wooden structures, another Masonic Lodge, this time off Lonsdale Avenue, engulfed in flames.
I mean, it's a total loss of a very historic building in the city of North Vancouver.
It was one of the few remaining wood structures of original construction on Lonsdale. There's, to my knowledge, not really
any other left.
But the fires didn't stop there. Again, less than an hour after the Lonsdale blaze, and Vancouver police are called to the scene of another Masonic temple on fire. And for this blaze, Vancouver police say a video captured by a witness shows the moments just after the fire.
We had an off-duty officer driving in the area of Rupert Street and East 29th Avenue around the time, or it's just before 7:30, and he did witness a man exit the building there. The building was partially on fire. In front of this man, a physical fight ensued between the man and the off-duty police officer, and then that suspect did flee.
Vancouver RCMP joined forces with North Vancouver RCMP and multiple task forces, including the K9 unit, and just a few hours later, a 42-year-old man was arrested in Burnaby, suspected of arson in all 3 fires at the Masonic lodges.
I'm just brokenhearted. I'm just dumbfounded. Such a great, incredible loss.
The lodges and halls across the Lower Mainland belong to community members called Masons or Freemasons, one of the oldest fraternities with a focus on charity and contributing to the betterment of society.
I would just want to ask him why.
You know, it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Because he's not only harming the Masonic lodge, he's harming people that depend on them for help.
Oh, charity structure.
Members of the community say they've lost a part of their history they'll never be able to get back. But a fire, or 3 in this case, will not stop their charity work. Zara Premji, CBC News, North Vancouver.
So this lodge and the others certainly a part of the fabric of this community for many years, and the Masons are, of course, very troubled by what happened here and elsewhere this morning throughout the Lower Mainland. Right now I want to bring in John Rebalkin. John is a past master of the nearby Capilano Lodge, which is just west of here in North Vancouver. Your meetings would be held here on Lonsdale.
We've been meeting here since we got installed as a lodge.
Yeah, and tell us how you're feeling tonight. I know obviously your group is pretty upset.
We're devastated. We've lost a building. It's 110 years old, been active, but we may have lost the building, but we haven't lost the institution.
And that institution will presumably continue to do the good work, do the support work that you do in these communities?
Very much so.
Right.
Very much so.
And any idea as to why somebody would want to do this?
I think we're all waiting for the police report. Why a 42-year-old man would go after one lodge to another. He had some bee in his bonnet, but we'll find that out in due course.
All right. And can you, I've had a lot of people say to me, so what are the Masons? What is your organization about?
3 words: faith, hope, and charity. Giving back. We're a fraternity of man trying to make a good man better. That's what Freemasons have been about since it was first created.
All right. We appreciate you joining us tonight, John, and hopefully things can get back on track here as we go forward.
Thank you for your coverage.
All right. Thanks very much. All right, Anita, so that's it from here in North Vancouver. Once again, a 42-year-old suspect in custody. Police recommending arson charges in connection with these 3 arson fires that happened throughout Metro Vancouver this morning. And we assume that suspect will be making a court appearance in due course. Until now, back to you.
All right, Mike Killeen live once again in North Vancouver tonight. Thanks, Mike. Well, do you want to be a Supreme Court judge? You better be bilingual. Why people are saying a proposed law is hurting the court's efforts to be more diverse. And at 6:42, you are looking at a live shot downtown Victoria from the Swans Hotel. A beautiful day today. How long will the sun last? Well, Johanna will be here soon with some perhaps not so great news. The Trudeau government requires Supreme Court appointees to be fluent in French and English. Now, Ottawa is proposing reforms to make it the law. But as Olivia Stefanovich reports, some say that will hurt the eligibility of diverse candidates.
Harry Laforme was the first Indigenous justice appointed to a Canadian Court of Appeal in 2004. Years later, he seemed like an excellent candidate for the top bench. Legal groups from all sorts of cultural backgrounds even campaigned for his appointment, but he didn't put his name forward.
You can't even put my name in front of the Prime Minister because I don't speak French. So what would be the point of me applying?
In 2016, the Trudeau government changed the appointment process for the Supreme Court of Canada. It introduced a requirement for fluency in both English and French. Now Ottawa wants to make that the law.
We can get there where we have an Indigenous judge that is able to express themselves in both languages.
Marion Buller, the first female First Nations judge in BC, says a compromise should be made for Supreme Court appointees.
They should have some functionality in both languages. But I don't think that there should be a requirement that they be bilingual.
We weren't allowed to speak our language on our reserve.
Growing up on the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation near Hamilton, Ontario, Laforme says he was forced to learn English only. He says there needs to be an exception for Indigenous candidates given Canada's history.
We are the product of residential schools where the whole purpose was to get rid of our Indianness entirely. And I thought, with that kind of history, now here we are being punished.
17 years after Laforme was appointed, only just last week was a second Indigenous justice named to a court of appeal. The government says it's confident an Indigenous judge will someday be appointed to the highest bench. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
Okay, meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us once again now with the full forecast. I know there's rain coming. You mentioned that.
Yes.
How are we looking, I guess, after the rain?
Yes, because you're right, Anita. That would take us to, according to my calculations, the long weekend. So for many people, I think we've got a bit of something for everyone as we look forward to Friday and beyond. But we do have to get through a bit of a rainmaker for Thursday. So enjoy the sunshine tomorrow because it all changes after that. I want to start off with a look at the big picture. This time yesterday, we were looking at the current temperatures in Winnipeg, and I think it was about 8 degrees. Wind chills right now, -17. That is what you call a cold front. It's been racing across the prairies over the past 2 days. We saw blizzard conditions in southern Manitoba today, and it's pushing into northern Ontario. I just love a good springtime cold front across the country. +18 in Toronto, -17 in Winnipeg. That is springtime for you in Canada, and we're hanging on to an 8 in in Vancouver, a little warmer in Victoria. High pressure is our story, as I mentioned earlier. It's protecting us from that system off towards the northwest. That's where the rain is being directed right now. We're seeing some cloud creep in over the top end in through Prince George. You may see a few flurries tonight before things clear out in your afternoon forecast. Notice that cold front sneaking down the coast, though. Here's a snapshot of tomorrow evening, and we'll start to see those showers move into Port Hardy. But I think it'll hold off until Thursday morning for us on the south coast, giving another shot of snow you can see to both the coastal mountains and the Rockies, where we continue to remain well above seasonal for the snowpack. I'll be watching that closely. In fact, I think the latest snowpack data will come out in the next 7 days, so I'll keep you posted. Lots of sunshine in the forecast across the province, as I mentioned, after we get through some flurries and showers tonight. This is your forecast for tomorrow, looking at increasing sunshine. Pretty windy tomorrow for Prince Rupert and Haida Gwaii, looking at 80 kilometer per hour gusts possible with that steady rain as that cold front slides down. Another feature in the warm pocket before we get to that cold front, look at these temperatures in the southern interior. 17 tomorrow in through Osoyoos, warmest push before the cold front. 18 in Osoyoos as we head into Thursday's forecast. We might even see a few records break. And we've got that 13 tomorrow before temperatures cool down slightly for the end of the week. But notice it's a mixed bag, Anita. We've got showers, sunshine, cloud. Really just Thursday is the full-on showers all day, but I'll keep us posted. I'll find some sunshine. Got my work cut out for me over the next couple of days.
Everyone loves a mixed bag, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
All right, our latest podcast delves into one man's identity. Pieces follows Jeremy Ratt as he examines his feelings about being mixed and learning more about his Indigenous identity. Here's a preview.
My name is Jeremy Ratt, and I am mixed. My mother is Indigenous, and I have a white father. This makes me a person of mixed race. Two pieces of me split right down the middle. And it is this mixed background that defines me. I was white passing for most of my childhood, and I spent most of that time subconsciously embracing that. Despite a supportive family, I felt like my lighter skin distanced me from embracing the Indigenous side of myself. I didn't think I was Indigenous enough to take that pride in my roots. I moved around growing up, but almost every summer and Christmas vacation, I'd stay at my grandmother's house in Pelican Narrows. This was the reserve of my mother's family, and every time I was there, I was loved, but it was very clear to the other residents of that community that I wasn't from there. Apitoscan was a word I'd always heard when it came to the definition of mixed Indigenous peoples. In Woodland Cree, it means half-breed as well as Métis. When I hit middle school, I was dealing with a lot more than the expected awkward preteen years. My skin darkened, my hair darkened, and the Indigenous side of me became more visible. I was white passing no more. This made me feel more confused, more lost, and as my worldview expanded and I became more aware of the history of racism against Indigenous peoples in Canada, I started to feel not only distant, but also ashamed of being Indigenous. I knew I couldn't live like this. I had to break free of this identity fog, and this is what the CBC podcast Pieces, which I host, is all about. It's my journey to understand, educate, and love myself. I wish I could tell that younger Jeremy that he is Indigenous enough, he is human enough, and he is more than enough to be loved. And that's everything.
Look at that. The blossoms are out in full force in Vancouver, but also in Washington, D.C. And some animals are feeling the spring fever, too. How this moose ended up in a pool. Next.
A Da Vinci ladder it's a medieval ladder that used to be used to span across moats or across rivers, things like that, with ancient armies, and it's all built based off of gravity. So our grade 5s are exploring invisible forces right now, gravity being one of those. They're also doing data analysis and collection, so instead of doing it on a worksheet, we decided to build the Da Vinci ladder and collect anecdotal and numerical data for the kids to analyze, and then they're also collecting video and photos so that they can analyze their work and see how they can improve their prototypes. Basically what the kids are doing is they're using the 2x4s as the main supports. The dowels are almost like a peg that holds the longer pieces together, and they have to counterbalance it. So they're trying to find the maximum efficiency point where they can put the dowel so that it spans as far as possible, but it's also strong enough and structurally sound so that it's not wobbling left to right or flopping up and down. So hold on, it's all right.
It's pretty hard because usually, well, as like the first one that we did with the square dowels, were pretty hard because one of them actually snapped, and then but with the circular dowels, they're so much like thicker and like easier to. I don't know how, but I don't know how they're circular and they work better, or like stay there.
At first I was a bit like, because I didn't really know what it was, and I was like, well, I didn't really know, but then we watched the video and I kind of saw what we were doing, and then we kind of figured it out as we were going, and then we saw, and then we did it, and then it actually worked out how we were trying it to work out.
You got it, guys. Right now, it's not just content, but it's focused on skills-based education. So it's blending an interesting experience, but also building some expertise. That's how I like to learn as a kid. That's how a lot of kids like to learn. So if we can provide these experiences for our K-8 kids, that's exciting for them. We've got kids working on projects K-8 like this, so a lot of hands-on learning, integrating maker carts, things like that, so they can tie the curriculum into the skill sets. So it's a skill blend between skills-based education, but also content education too.
That's good. Now we need to put another one over there.
But they're very hands-on, so everybody sees the value in each other, and that's really good for the collaboration skills because they realize that you can't be everything, and you need different people with different skill sets and how you can work together and make things collaboratively work together as a group versus one individual always being in charge or always being the leader. Today, I was able to suspend myself from one of the bridges, so it was a strong enough bridge to hold 230 pounds, which is pretty impressive given that there were no nuts, bolts, screws, glue, anything like that. So the kids were kind of excited to see their principal hanging from their bridge.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. CBC Vancouver's Dan Burrett returns as host at the virtual Surrey Board of Trade Top 25 Under 25 Awards on April 22nd. Get your tickets today at businessinsurrey.com. And don't miss the Doxa Documentary Film Festival, May 6th to 16th. Enjoy thoughtful and engaging documentaries, panel discussions, and educational programs, all from the comfort of your own home. Learn more at doxafestival.ca.
Well, there was an unusual scene this morning in Quebec.
A family in Sherbrooke spotted someone or something in their pool. That's right. A moose took advantage of the beautiful weather to go for a little dip. Earlier in the day, the moose had been spotted just strolling through the streets of town. It sounds like a lovely spring day to me.
Oh, that moose is just chilling. It took 8 police officers and 4 wildlife agents to get it out. They were able to tranquilize it and move it to safety.
Yeah, it's my kind of idea of a good spring day. Speaking of spring, there's an early spring treat for residents in Washington, D.C. The city's famous cherry blossoms are hitting peak bloom earlier than expected this year, and that's due to the well above average temperatures recently in the region.
Yes, the U.S. National Park Service announced on Sunday the trees have reached the final blooming stage. Officials are encouraging people to view the blossoms from the live camera feed. Actually, a lot of my family is in that area, Washington, D.C., and they were posting beautiful photos today. I was quite jealous of their nice spring weather and all their cherry blossoms.
I like this little competition we could have going on with your family in Washington and Vancouver, because ours aren't peaking yet. But
No.
let the social media wars begin.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it for our show tonight. You can always find our program online, cbc.ca/BC. And Isabel Regam is here after the National, and she's in for Dan tonight. Good night.
Good night.